Okay, we'll continue on with chapter 15. Number 11 is the first one we'll look at. It's entitled Cost of Direct Materials Used in Production. So it asks, determine the cost of direct materials used in production by this company during the month ended June 30th. If you actually turn to page 765 in your text, there's a layout. It's the exact layout that you should use, and it reads, start off with your beginning inventory, add to that the direct materials purchased, and then that gets you to a subtotal of what's available. You then take away your ending inventory, and then ultimately that's the cost of the direct materials that were used in production. So had you read your chapter, you'd find this layout on page 765. All right, here, let's go back. 765. Number 13, cost of goods manufactured. All right, so again, this is also detailed on page 765, but what we're doing here is we're going to start off with beginning WIP. So you've got your what was in WIP, and then this is what is in production now. What did we manufacture? And when we manufacture is when we actually add more, direct materials, direct labor, and the overhead. That's where it's all applied. So this amount here that we use in number 11 is what ultimately would flow down into this cost of goods manufactured. It's, of course, different numbers. It's a different problem. But here's the raw materials, if you will, before you did anything. And then this gets moved over into this report where we add the labor and the overhead. And then, of course, what's left in WIP is the ending balance. And then ultimately, that's what we would call our cost of goods manufactured. Which then leads us to number 14, when they ask you to produce a cost of goods sold. What did you actually sell? And if you look in your text, there you start off with your beginning finished goods. You add to that your cost of goods manufactured, which is then what's available for sale. Take away what's still sitting in finished goods, and then you will end up with your cost of goods sold. If you looked at page 767, part B is the layout of number 14. So again, all three of these, though they're all different, they all ultimately, one feeds into the next, and then ultimately the second one feeds into the third report. Let's move to number 16. Number 16 reads, cost of goods sold, profit margin, and net income. So for the month ended, determine the cost of goods sold, gross profit, and then net income. So once again, this part right up here is just like this problem right here. Turn to page 767 if you need more detail, but start off with your beginning inventory, finished goods, and then what did you manufacture? It's all what's available. Take away with the ending, and then you get to your cost of goods sold. Letter B, I want you to calculate what is the gross profit. Well, the gross profit is your sales minus your cost of goods sold, and then you got your gross profit. C, it asks for you to calculate your net income. Well, so sales minus cost of goods sold equals gross profit minus your two operating expenses, selling and administrative, and you get to net income. All right, moving along. Problem 1A, if you look through there, it says classifying costs, and you have to either classify it as a product cost or a period cost. And if it's a period cost, it's either going to be selling or administrative. If it's a product cost, it needs to be one of these three. So inventoriable costs, and that's what ends up going straight to your income statement. So pretty straightforward problem. You got to classify it as either a product or a period, and then it's ultimately what type of cost. So you have to agree these period costs go straight to the income statement, but at some point these will as well. Initially we put them on the balance sheet, but at some point it's going to run through your cost of goods sold. Same with problem 2A. Once again, identify is it a product or a period, and then take it one step further. If it's a period cost, is it selling administrative? If it's a product, is it direct materials, direct labor, or overhead? And then the last one that's assigned for this chapter is problem 3A, and it wants you to classify either it being a direct cost or an indirect cost. So going through that list, the final cost needs to either be a direct cost or an indirect cost. Also, you need to know what we are looking at. In this case, it says this is a partial list of the medical center, okay, medical center costs. What should this medical center most logical definition for this final cost object? So like letter B, it says blood tests. Well, that's what we do. Letter A, advertising. Well, that's a indirect cost. So that basically wraps up Chapter 15, our Introduction to Managerial Accounting, and we will stop there. Thank you.